Hello everyone, my name is NoNumberMan and welcome to today's video, an interview with Silk.net's founder, Perksey. So say hello.
Yeah, hello.
Right, so I have prepared for today a whole bunch of questions that I think will be very interesting to you, it's gonna come up. In the meantime, everyone here live with us in chat can ask any questions you like, as long as they are somewhat appropriate, right? And then at the end, after we've done all the other questions, we'll go over all of the viewer questions. Yeah, I think that will make for a very interesting stream indeed. So I think most people are gonna be here by now. We should just get started. We're late anyways. So yes, Perksey, tell us something about yourself.
My name's Dylan, otherwise known as Perksey. I am the founder of Silk.net and oversaw pretty much all of its development up until a few months ago. And have been responsible for the vast majority of production updates. So needless to say, I've sort of either wrote or reviewed pretty much every line of code in the codebase.
Wow.
So definitely a lot to prod. This is sort of going to be an experience for me to sort of jog my memory as well.
It's quite a bit of codebase you got here.
Yes, yeah. I'm kind of hoping we go down a rabbit hole, to be honest, with some of the questions.
I'm sure we will.
I want to see how deep into it that we get.
Yeah. So what happened then? You mentioned that you quit, or what happened?
I stepped down only a few months ago, primarily because I was really running out of time to maintain the project. It's not an easy project to maintain, and I wasn't being able to commit a lot of time to it. And there were a lot of people around me that sort of were able to carry the vision forward that I have for the project. So they seemed more. They seem more capable to work on it than me, so I sort of handed it over to them. There's the maintainers, the three maintainers of it now, Kai, Thomas, and Bailey are very capable and sort of the same as me, really wanting to make the best bindings library for C# for graphics in C# as humanly possible.
Nice. Well, yeah, I guess it is kind of sad, I suppose, that you have to let it go. But
yes, I know. I'm gutted as well. I really love the project.
But it's good to hear that it is in good hands at the very least.
Yes. Yeah.
So maybe we should actually sort of start off with mentioning what actually is Silk.net for any viewers who happen across like the stream or the video who actually don't even know what Silk.net is.
Yeah, sure. So Silk.net is sort of meant to be your one-stop shop for pretty much anything high-speed .NET, multimedia, graphics, visualization, pretty much anything that touches a GPU or needs like very high-speed compute. And it has bindings to a lot of standard APIs like OpenGL, Vulkan, OpenXR, OpenAL, DirectX. The list does go on, so we have a lot of bindings.
Everything. Yeah.
But yeah, the idea is that we're sort of obviously interacting with these native libraries in C# isn't the easiest thing in the world, and we want to make it easy and readily available. So yeah, we sort of want to be the one library you need to actually talk to native and talk to your GPU.
Yeah.
From C#.
Yeah, that's very good. It's very good. I mean, there is already another one though. I wanted to hear your opinion on that. So what do you think of OpenTK? Because that has been around for a while at this point. Does sort of the same thing.
I was a developer on OpenTK before Silk.net.
Oh, you were also a developer there. That's very interesting.
So I was a developer there for I think 1 or 2 years. I helped with the first iterations of the OpenTK 4.0 version. And sadly, a lot of the code I did write got redesigned over there, seeing as they wanted to make things more familiar with the original version of OpenTK. So that's sort of because I'm sure anyone who's used both OpenTK and Silk.net know there's sort of difference in design philosophy. That's evident in some places. So yeah, I sort of created the thought process between the maintainers naturally diverged, and I sort of created Silk.net to make my OpenTK essentially.
Cool. That's very interesting. Yeah. So then
it originally started as a fork of OpenTK, but then I decided to completely rewrite everything.
I just said, F it, let's just build it from the ground up. That must have been an insane amount of work, though.
Yeah, we managed to have a couple people jump over who worked with me on OpenTK to work with me on Silk.net as well.
Okay, that helps.
Yeah, exactly. Some of which worked on both projects, and some of which moved over to carry the Silk vision entirely. Yeah. I think we got the first working version of it down in 2 months, and that includes bringing up the code generator, bringing up all the actual low-level bits where we're actually talking to native. 2 months for the first preview, and then over the next year-ish, I think, after that. In fact, not even a year. I think it was we started development in June, and I think it was late 2019 that we had a fully working production-ready build of it.
That's
so it was really quite quick development, and it was very good to have other community members passionate about the cause there.
Yeah, that always helps. That's a good thing about open source, is that anyone can help, and in some cases it makes it quick.
Yes, exactly. Yes, yeah.
So, well, I suppose I'd be very interested to know. OpenTK right now. What do you think of it? It's just different design philosophy, but is it any good, or are you just better off with Silk.net?
There's a number of factors to that. I will say that some of the code behind it I haven't necessarily seen of the new version. Right. I do know that from the general feel on the maintainers team over there when I was departing, that they're sort of trying to stick to their roots a little bit, try to keep things familiar for their users. Although that could be changing because I know they're working on another new version now.
I think I've seen something about that.
Yeah, so I feel like anything I say on the actual code or design could be completely wrong or completely invalidated, so I'm not going to go there. But I know from sort of the philosophy is that OpenTK has been around for like 13 or actually no, COVID happened. It's probably 15 years now.
Yeah, it's just empty leap years at this point.
Yes. Yeah. So it's been around a while, and it's garnered a massive user base, and you can't sort of go changing everything on them. Whereas we sort of took a different approach right from the start, is that we believe in rapid evolution in an accelerated time frame. So we will be, we have the monthly updates, but then we also, with every major version, we bring in very, very big changes that improve the library, whereas I don't know. I'd imagine the appetite for OpenTK to actually break stuff will probably be a lot less, seeing as they've got a 15-year user base to care about. We have a fairly big user base now as well, which we didn't when we were originally starting. But at the same time, it's always been underscored by that. We want to evolve as fast as possible and bring in as many new features that are made available to the .NET ecosystem as fast as possible.
Yes,
and it's all that difference in philosophy that led me to, make my own.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a great success. Like you mentioned, a lot of people are starting to use it now. I mean, I found it through someone else on the Discord server, I believe. Someone mentioned it. I checked it out, and it was actually pretty good. So, but then I noticed it is also actually sponsored by the .NET Foundation, or it's supported by the .NET Foundation. That's also a big deal, is it not?
Yes, yeah. So around the time of our second major version, 2.0, we were invited to become part of the .NET Foundation, which houses all sorts of very big projects that are used ubiquitously within the .NET ecosystem, like Image Sharp, the .NET platform itself, and lots of other great projects, hundreds of them. So we're very happy with the opportunity there. Because one thing with a lot of the philosophy behind Silk.net is that we wanted to make it very clear that we won't die tomorrow. Because I know with OpenTK, I mean, at one point they went almost 2 years without an update, and that was back when OpenGL was still receiving lots of changes, like around the 2014 to 2016 time. So it's sort of in limbo for that amount of time, and we wanted to make it clear, right, we're doing everything we possibly can to make sure that doesn't happen. We've got the monthly updates, we've got this massive organisation backing us. We're really creating this grateful to show that commitment.
This hype around it to keep it going. It's pretty good. What do you think, like, from here, right? You now have all of these APIs inside of Silk.net. You have this .NET Foundation support. You have this rapid development environment. Where do you think it will go in like the coming few years? What do you think I guess you may be not as involved anymore, but what do you think the project will head towards, what will be added?
So we are currently rewriting not me personally, but the team are currently rewriting the entire library, because we did notice that with 2.0, it wasn't a complete rewrite, but it was a big refactor, but it still has a lot of its roots in there that was sort of showing a few growing pains, some bits that aren't very easy to use. Like we found a function that has nearly 150 overloads in them, and that's just not good, a good user experience, because which one do you pick? So it's things like that is just sort of taking the team back to the drawing board and thinking, right, how can we design this to be truly the best library possible, bindings library possible, and a good user experience, as well as we're also redesigning our generator to actually be consumable outside of Silk.net. So anything that we don't provide bindings for, the user can make their own bindings using our technology and get the same silky feeling to the bindings that they create.
That's very cool. Yeah. Okay, so if I'm like, well, let's say I'm GUI, right? Let's say I want the other branch. You mentioned you have the docking branch. Let's say I want a non-docking branch. I can just run that, and then I get all the bindings that I need.
Yes, exactly. And there's a lot of other things that have led to led us to completely rewrite the library. Like the .NET landscape has changed a lot since we originally created Silk.net, for instance. MAUI is a thing. .NET 6 is this one target framework that you can use to target mobile, to target desktop, to target lots of these platforms, and we found
made some improvements there.
Some of our abstractions weren't necessarily fit for that environment, so we've also redesigned windowing and input. Input particularly is exciting for me, as we've also designed it to work with VR applications as well. So it's a lot more modular than it used to be. That is something that I worked quite hard to come up with a good design for with the team. And by the way, I should probably mention this, that all of our design discussions are either hosted in our Discord server, or when it comes to review time, we review them on stream on the .NET Foundation channel. So if you're ever curious about some of the decision-making processes, definitely look in those two places.
Yeah, so you also live stream then on the .NET Foundation channel. That's very cool. That's something I'll definitely link, at least in the video, and on the YouTube video in the description. You can find the link to the Twitch channel.
Yeah, we do our API reviews on the .NET Foundation YouTube channel live, and we also
on the YouTube channel.
And we also have occasional catch-ups where we discuss the current development of Silk.net on there as well. Again, it's very good that we're able to use that platform given to us by the .NET Foundation. It's great interacting with everyone who's contributing to a project like this. Exactly. That's the main reason we did it, to keep everyone in the loop. Sharing
the vision so everyone knows where it's headed. It's always a good idea, I guess.
Yes.
So it's you're really going somewhere then. So it's basically a version 3 that you're working on then?
Yes, version 3.
Yeah, okay, so you think after version 3, is it like mature enough at that point that it can really be used for a large-scale video game somewhere?
Well, it's already used by lots of indie games. So we've got an entire indie game built entirely from scratch on Silk.net. That's called Project Hedra.
Oh, I want to check that
the
out.
website for that is projecthedra.com, and it's a it's a voxel game built entirely upon Silk.net.
Oh, voxel game, I like those.
I know. So yeah, it's a really cool game actually. It sort of blends a lot of worlds together.
Oh, yeah, procedurally generated.
Yes, yeah. So yeah, lots of really cool stuff built on Silk.net, and it's sort of the library of things that are built on Silk keep growing. I know that we also had people from Activision Blizzard using it, people from Microsoft, people from HP.
Really?
So it is used by people who work for big companies at least. I don't know whether it's used by things made for people for work at those companies, but it's at least used by employees of those companies.
Yeah, that's super interesting because you would expect, especially Activision Blizzard, to just use C++ or even just C. Well, I guess C++ is more common, right? Just with the native OpenGL to begin with, and then just skip the C# step.
Yeah, again, I don't know whether it was a hobby project by someone working at Activision Blizzard. I just know
still, if it's a hobby project, that's
yeah,
still pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really, really cool. So I guess this is the point where we can really start digging. You know, that rabbit hole. We got a good understanding of Silk.net now. Well, it is how we got here, where we're going. But really, what was the most challenging thing? Let's actually go there. What's the most challenging thing that you wrote for Silk.net?
The generator.
The
100% the generator. Yeah, because I often joke that Silk.net is just a big XML to C# converter with a few abstractions on top here and there. Because the vast majority of the library is generated. We actually did a talk with Jetbrains on their YouTube channel, going through on a high level what our generators do and how it all sort of fits into the big picture that is Silk.net. So if you're interested in code generation, that's definitely something to check out. But yeah, it's the code generator was really hard to get right, and then with 2.0 as well, we added support for DirectX, which doesn't have an XML representation; it's just a C++ header. So we had to start talking to the Clang compiler and parsing all the headers, and it's very much a nightmare in C++, and it took us ages to get right. And I still don't think we're completely there. That's why 3.0 exists.
Oh yeah, okay. So it's usable now at the very least, DirectX, but it still has some issues then.
Yes, yeah, because we're constantly improving our DirectX bindings. Like there are massive changes coming in the next version of Silk.net, which makes maintaining object lifetimes a lot easier, which is something that is an absolute nightmare at the moment, given that our bindings are sort of like the C version of DirectX, but just brought up to C# rather than having nicer abstractions over it. Because also Silk.net is a one-to-one wrapper, but that doesn't mean that we can't keep our bindings one-to-one, but make them more C#. That's what the silky part of Silk.net is always meant to be. It's like it's one-to-one bindings, but it's meant to fit in more with the C# code that you write, rather than just being lifted to C#.
That makes sense. You don't want to have these weird out-int constructions everywhere. You know, if you have to get an integer out of a native function, you want something that's just gives back an object or something like that. Something sounds more C-sharpish.
Yeah, I mean, we do want to still keep it as high performance as possible, and that abstraction is always incredibly hard to get right. There's a lot of tricks that you can use to trick the just-in-time compiler or the JIT to make the code nice, but at the same time still optimize down to the to one-to-one code. So it's
yeah,
it's really interesting making abstractions like that. For example, on the DirectX side, what we essentially do is expose a com pointer struct, which is generic and essentially says I am a pointer to this native object. In fact, I can sort of show that off if screen share works.
Let's see. So that would be interesting.
Yes. Yeah. Right. Hopefully that works.
Yeah. Otherwise, you can also. Okay. It's just in the repository, right?
Yes.
If this doesn't work well, then it might be worthwhile for me to go to the repository on my own. I mean, I already have it open, but let's try this.
Yeah. For some reason, I also get a bunch of audio issues when I screen share as well. So we'll see what happens see if it holds up. So yeah, that's a forewarning. But at the moment, it's on a branch.
There are a lot of branches.
Yes, there's a lot of work happening all at the same time. There's a lot of parallel play. So if I look at, I actually wrote an example on what these new bindings look like. So if we sort of look here, you declare your DirectX objects as com pointers, and then when you use them later on, for example, if I just search for query, apparently not. Bear with me.
Sure. But it's just like a pointer, so you can dereference it. And then
yes, exactly. In fact, we've made the dereferencing implicit as well, so you can actually call the methods through the com pointer rather than having to do like device context dot get thing.
Yeah.
That's
a little bit better.
Yeah, exactly. You can just because the way C# extension methods work, you can call it directly through the com pointer. And yes, lots of really interesting stuff that goes into that. You can also just, when you're calling the functions as well, you can pass a reference to a com pointer, and that automatically resolves to the correct type. You can see get buffer here, because if you look at the native definition of get buffer, it has a interface ID and a void pointer, whereas we have decided to make it nice and auto-generate an overload that collapses those two parameters into a return type.
Yeah, I think that's it's neat. It's smooth, you could say, silky smooth.
Smooth as silk, yes. So yeah, that's still in the work in a pull request at the moment. What did I got? We've got lots of pull requests at the moment because again we have a lot of work going on at once.
Yeah.
I also do feel for the other maintainers on the project, as the pull requests that touch the generator are always ridiculous in lines of code changed.
Yes.
For example, this has added 1.5 million lines of code.
Wow.
Well, most of it is generated, but it's still you've got to make sure the generator is doing the right thing. So it's a lot to review. I see we've got one of the other maintainers.
1,000 files changed.
Yes, yeah. I see we've got one of the other maintainers in the chat as well. So yes, they can probably attest to that. But yeah, lots of working on the Go generator is always interesting. I really love generated code, metaprogramming and stuff like that.
Yeah, because this. Okay, here we go. Right, this is just something that the generator just creates. The IDX factory. I've never worked with DirectX. I don't know what any of this means, by the way. Just saying. We might be having these audio issues. Yes. Okay, I cannot hear you anymore. Let's stop watching.
Hello.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Yeah. So, right, I'm going to get out the pull request view as GitHub's UI is very, very slow. Bailey, I was just saying how it's very horrible to review the pull request that I create.
Yes, well, I can't imagine why.
Right. Okay. Right, finally got out there. So I'll go over to my branch again, and look at one of the generated files. So if I go in the Microsoft folder, Direct 3D11, structs, because all the interfaces are represented as structs as well. Again, a step to make it as one-to-one as possible and have no overhead, because a C# object does have, like a class, it has overhead.
Yeah, you don't want that.
Tracked by the GC. So if I do ID3D11 device, and just look at that. Oh, apparently it's too big to see in the GitHub UI, so I apologize.
Right, yeah, this is maybe you have to zoom in a little bit. I don't think this is readable on stream. Yeah,
yes,
that's better.
Yes. So lots and lots of generated code. We do a lot of unsafety in the generated code as well, so sort of like mask that away from the end users as well.
Yeah.
But again, we did a talk with Jetbrains on how the generators work and how it ends up look like. So
I'm gonna have to look it up, or maybe you can share it on the Discord after the interview for everyone. Because I do think that is pretty interesting to see. I have heard you say something. Speaking of the Discord channel, I have heard you say something in there about your math types, like your vector types. They aren't quite up to the .NET. What's it called? System.numerics speeds and efficiency. Yeah,
so it is. So on that front, it is impossible to to make a custom vector type that is the same speed as system.numerics, because they actually have code paths baked into the JIT that generate specialized assembly for those types. So no other maths library is faster than system.numerics. It is something that we are trying to work with Microsoft to get into. I think .NET 8 is the current estimate.
Okay.
So it's something that we're trying to work on, but again, for the time being, we just can't get code paths that fast. We can get faster than Silk.NET Maths is currently in terms of speed, but that's something that's actively being worked on by the community.
Right, but then,
so progress is slow, but it is always getting faster. Yeah.
But then in .NET 8, can everyone just write these shortcuts? Let's say, or
so the changes that are currently being discussed for .NET, that are currently stated for .NET 8, is essentially any struct that that contains 4 floats or 4 doubles automatically gets reinterpreted as, oh, this is a vector of 4 doubles. And when you're adding things,
then you can use these SSE instructions.
Like all of the fields of that struct together, the code path will be identified by the JIT, and will be optimized down to vector instructions called SIMD instructions, single instruction, multiple data, which is how you get the most out of your processor.
Absolutely.
You can do addition of multiple numbers all at once and all these complex operations. Because you may have heard the name AVX or SSE.
I've worked with SIMD in the past, in C++, not in C#. But yeah, those things are very, very neat, very interesting to work with.
Yes, yeah. You can actually wield those raw instructions from C# as it is as well. There's a type called system.runtime.intrinsics that let you write those instructions in your code. And what we're trying to do in lieu of the .NET 8 changes, that just where we get those optimizations for free, is to essentially write some of those instructions manually in our code using the system.runtime.intrinsics namespace, so that our types are faster. It's never going to be as fast as system.numerics, because it's not going to stay in those CPU registers for the whole time. You have to be constantly converting between SIMD types and the actual stack type. But
you still have some overhead at that. Okay, very interesting.
Again, it's impossible to get as fast as system.numerics at the moment, which is fine, because the purpose of Silk.NET Math isn't meant to be a system.numerics replacement.
Right.
But it's just meant to fill in the holes left by system.numerics, because system.numerics does not have nearly as much functionality as Silk.NET Math does.
Yeah, honestly, that's something that's been annoying me for a while in .NET. Yeah.
Yes,
System.numerics is not very easy to work with, but oh well.
Yeah, and that's why Silk.NET Math exists. For example, all of our vectors are generics, so you can use any numerical type under the sun with our vectors, whereas with system.numerics, it's just single precision floating point numbers. No integers, no double precision. For that, we've had to make our own custom one.
Double precision, you don't very often need those, but integers are so nice, especially when working with voxel games.
Yes,
I've been missing those, but hopefully, when they add that in .NET 8, I'll be very excited to check that out to create some of my own types.
Yes, yeah. It should, in theory, be something like you just write a struct with 4 consecutive float fields, and it detects like, oh, this is a vector, or it is what they call a SIMD-like type.
Yeah.
So yeah, the JIT is always getting smarter. So lots of exciting stuff there.
Someday C# will be just as quick as C++.
Yes. Yeah. Well, in some cases.
Oh! Wow. My sound just.
Yeah.
Did something really weird. Okay, I think my microphone just unplugged, or my headphone just unplugged for a second. Oops.
Okay.
Okay.
But yeah, so I mean, C# in some cases is faster because, well, I don't because it's just in time compiled. You can actually sort of change the just in time compiler can change the code as it's running. So if it detects that one code path gets hit more frequently than others, then you can optimize the code around that code path. So the application sort of gets faster over time the longer you run it. This is also what makes C# really good in server applications, like ASP.NET. Because ASP.NET is one of the fastest server implementations available, and it is primarily because of it's some of the architecture, but primarily because of the fact that the just-in-time compiler is just that geared towards that sort of workload.
Yeah, that's actually very interesting. I didn't know that JIT was able to do that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, talking about the most challenging things, right? What's the most challenging thing that still needs to happen in the future? Like, is it still generators?
Oh, pretty much everything with Silk.NET's generators. Because there isn't much more to the library than the generator. So even if there are some cases where we think, oh, this binding needs to be easier to use, that in most cases comes back to the generator, then that we need to add code paths in the generator to make this easier.
Right. Yeah, there's just so much stuff you can possibly hand code everything. Right.
Yes. Exactly. I mean, I think for the JetBrains webinar, we counted it up, and I believe it was something like 25 million lines of code, I want to say, or 6 million, anywhere between 6 million and 25 million. The number is fuzzy to me.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot.
Yes. Yeah.
Bottom line.
Just gonna search up that number actually, as it will be interesting to look back on that. There we go. So nearly 7 million lines of code as at the time of that webinar.
Wow. Yes, that's too much to write by hand. Yeah. At least with that.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, it does add another 1.5 million lines, so it's probably closer to 9 million now.
9 million. Well, that's quite an achievement, I have to say. It's definitely more than I've ever written. So, well, there you go. Just writing code such that writes more code. So the machines are taking over.
It's the thing I love about it.
Yeah. But now Silk is headed off into a very bright future, right? It has Silk 3.0 coming soon.
Yes.
But you're working on something else now, presumably.
I haven't found the next big thing yet. I mean, I'm sort of like drifting away from C# in the my day job is making embedded software, which is usually C, C++, and Rust, and I really like the Rust programming language at the moment. So I'm probably going to be looking at something in that area. But in terms of graphics, Rust has lots of stuff already, so I don't need to add anything there. Yeah, it's just finding the next big thing for me.
Rust. Rust is a very interesting language. Well, I guess it being your job, of course, that made you switch. I guess that maybe makes sense.
It's not even a big part of my job at the moment. It's something that I'm pushing to use more of because I just like the language that much. I think the thing that really sold it for me is the fact that you just be able to make loads and loads of asynchronous tasks without needing to worry about static state not matching up, or these data races that you just can't do, or memory issues, because you get that all for free because of the Rust compiler. And that was the thing that sort of made me fall in love with it, is that you can be fearlessly asynchronous and fearlessly concurrent.
There's a lot of stuff.
Not the Rust
thing. I want to talk about Rust maybe just a tiny bit, because it is interesting, especially from a C# perspective. Rust is entirely different, right? In like every way. So it's funny then that someone, I guess, like you, who has been writing fairly advanced C# code, is now switching to Rust, which is so different. It's a native programming language, and considering I write loads of code that interacts with native, it sort of made more sense for me to move to something like C++ or C#, rather than making C# code that looks like C or C++. Because unsafe everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. It's just not C# at that point.
No.
And of course, Silk exists to make sure our users don't have to do that. I still end up doing that, and because I do it for Silk.net, I end up doing it in lots of other projects as well. Like, that could be faster if I just use this tiny bit of unsafe. It's a vicious cycle.
Yes, that's very relatable. But then. No C++, you just decided let's just do Rust because the compiler.
Well, I use C++ at work, and it doesn't give a very good impression for me. So,
yes, it's C++ has some issues. I will admit. I'm a little bit of a fanboy, but still, it has some issues. I do.
Well, yes, it's very. You can write very, very good and very elegant C++ code that looks really nice, but you can also write very terrible C++ code, and everyone sort of does their own thing.
Somewhat nice, but then doesn't work at all, and it's impossible to debug.
You've also got people who write sort of like C with classes style C++ code, where just everything's a raw pointer. It doesn't use the nice things that you get in the STL.
Yes, I am very guilty of that. Yes.
So it's a very hard balance to strike. Whereas with Rust, you're sort of forced into writing things a certain way. And I like a programming language with a compiler that rules like an iron fist.
Yeah, it sure does. I have tried it in the past. It didn't like what I did. The lifetimes are difficult. I guess for a C person, it's something new.
Yeah, there's so much that language does differently that makes it very hard to pick up.
Yeah. All right, but maybe we should go back to C#. Maria, do you have any questions that have been asked in the meantime? Maybe you can bring those up. You can also maybe look at anything interesting that you want to talk about. Like what has really stuck with you over the past couple of years?
Lines of code and then trying to pick a region of it to focus on. I suppose Well, I've pointed a lot of the streams. So while I'm not involved in the day-to-day development of 3.0, I was involved in getting all the designs ready because I was passionate about. Because I do want Silk.net to be the best bindings library possible, even if I'm not able to carry that vision. But I did want to make sure that I was involved in the design process. So we've actually got in the repo, in the documentation and then proposals folder, we've got all of the designs that have ever been created for the big parts of Silk.net all documented, and it has some of our rationale behind why we designed it in a certain way. We've also had lots of great community contributions there as well, like in the Vulkan side of the bindings, we've had
wait, let's see.
Some really nice abstractions that have been like, because Vulkan's a very hard API to write for.
It's pretty verbose, from what I've gathered.
Yeah. But one of the big community contributions that I actually had nothing to do with, this is a community contributor decided to contribute to themselves, is that they've made a way to chain Vulkan structures using just a single method. Whereas before you'd have to like get a pointer to the structure you want to add to the chain and then add it to the chain in the original structure and all that stuff. So yeah, but yeah, that folder's definitely interesting if you ever want to look at the rationale behind some of the designs we've made for sort of that.
Yeah, there are more than 1,000 files in the Vulkan structs folder, and GitHub does not like it.
Yes, we find that a lot, is that GitHub doesn't like our repo very much.
Yeah.
To be honest, nothing likes our repo. Like Ryder even struggles, which is our team's IDE of choice.
Yeah, it's a good IDE.
Yes, yeah. I mean, we were sponsored by them, so we are a little biased. But...
Yeah, that makes sense. But I mean, Visual Studio will have trouble loading this much code as well. Maybe Visual Studio Code, but
yes,
doesn't quite have the same feel to it as a real IDE.
Oh, apparently, according to the other maintainer, VS Code eats 6 gigs of RAM, and then crashes when you try to open Silk.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a gigantic repo.
Even Visual Studio Code, that is crazy. Yeah. And Ryder's doing quite well. They're coming up with this new sort of code editor, the JetBrains team. I'm quite excited for it. Maybe that will help as well with the development.
Yeah, so I mean, I've had a play around with their new editor, and obviously it is very early days, which is why it's not.
Oh, right, it has this closed
publicly released
beta, but you have access to it.
Yeah, I have access to it. It's a really neat program, to be fair. Yes, it is Fleet. It is very much going the approach that VS Code's gone in, that it's got a lightweight front end, and the actual workhorse, like back end side of things, is implemented separately, and it just communicates with a lightweight front end. So it feels a lot snappier, even though it's still got the same analysis behind it. For example, when you're writing Java code, it's got a completely different front end, but it still calls into the IntelliJ backend that you know and love, and it has all of those refactorings, all of those syntax highlighting and code analysis that they've had 20 years to perfect.
Yeah.
It's definitely it definitely got a lot of promise. But yeah, it's very, very early days at the moment.
Yeah, it is, but still, nevertheless, I'm very excited for it. I love most of the JetBrains IDEs, so.
Oh, same.
Totally not biased, of course.
It's totally not. I mean, I was using it long before we got sponsored by them. I mean, I used Rider back when it was called Project Rider, which was like the sort of like around 2017 time, I think, if I remember correctly. So, been using it a long time, and it predates Silk's existence.
Yeah, that's hashtag not sponsored. Hashtag not sponsored, indeed.
Yes, exactly.
Does anyone else have any questions? This would be the time to ask. If not, then let's just do one more thing, I guess. Right. So I think I asked this just a minute ago, but still, anything from within the Silk.net code base that you've worked on that you thought was just interesting, or maybe a question that you've been asked a lot in the past couple of years that you want to clear up once and for all, and you don't have to deal with that anymore.
The the biggest questions usually are about like, what's the difference between this and OpenTK, which we covered at the start of the stream, but and the Silk.net math types as well. We get a lot as well, so we covered that as well.
Yeah.
It's that's a big question. I don't know, Bailey, if you can think of anything, please help me out. But yeah, there's a lot. I should probably sort of like sort of go over the code base as well, in that the actual source folder of the code base, it is very easy to sort of see where things fit. For example, every folder in the source folder has an obvious name, in that, well, you can probably imagine that the OpenGL bindings are in the OpenGL folder.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Yes, so so if anyone wants to contribute to Silk.net, the windowing library is a good place to start, as is input, maths, as they don't involve the code generator, which admittedly is very intimidating to contribute to.
Yes, it sounds intimidating, that's for sure.
Yes, again, we've had a lot of growing pains with the 2.0 generator, so 3.0 should be a lot easier to contribute to as well. That's one of the big things that we're trying to get.
Right, you even have SDL and GLFW?
Yes. So our windowing abstractions either use GLFW or SDL under the hood. It picks the most appropriate one for the platform. For example, we use SDL on mobile, where GLFW isn't supported.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we use GLFW. But the idea is that it's completely seamless to the user what you're using, and you shouldn't need to care.
Oh, that's very neat. Didn't see this before. Yeah, that makes sense. GLFW on mobile is not really that's not really a thing. And as .NET 6 is now cross-platform and all that.
Yes, yeah, exactly. I suppose that's another thing with 3.0 as well, is that it is designed for the .NET 6 ecosystem, whereas this is sort of, well, the vast majority of the development for the current version of Silk.net, it happened around the .NET Core 3.1 side of things, so
right.
It will be good to like fully modernize in the next version. I'm very excited to see what gets produced there. There's a lot of great work being done by the team at the moment, mostly around the code generator, so we can actually get we can start getting very, very, very pre-alpha builds out to the community to sort of show that this is coming along.
Okay, yeah, I'd be very interested in checking that out once it does come out. So
yes, the very, very, very pre-alpha. The very, very, very pre-alpha builds won't be the silky bindings you know and love today, because we've got to start slowly bringing that all back from the 2.0 generator to the 3.0 generator. So I'd imagine our initial proof of concept will be pretty much like the C bindings, just in a C# form, and then we slowly start redesigning and bringing back our 2.0 overloads that really make the binding silky.
Yeah, but it will still be different, right?
Yes, it will be entirely different. I'm sort of going to be of the opinion in that, much like when we were talking with OpenTK developers looking to migrate, is that it's probably not worth the massive amount of effort to migrate OpenTK code to Silk.net. At the same time, it's probably would. Yes, exactly, and it's the approach that we like to say is that if you're writing new code, use Silk.net, but if you have existing OpenTK code, it's probably best to stay in OpenTK.
Yes.
And likewise, we're probably going to go with the same approach with 3.0, is that 3.0 is going to look a lot different to 2.0, and it's probably best to keep 2.0 code that works on 2.0 until you absolutely have to migrate. We would love to say everyone should use the latest and greatest version, but it will be a massive amount of effort to migrate to it.
Yeah, that's I suppose the downside of having this
very quickly changing environment with all these innovations that you're trying to pull here. But
Yes.
well, the upside is of course that you're going to have probably the most modern, well, definitely the most modern and seamless graphics API for C# that's available for anyone.
Yes.
So it's
Exactly.
a pretty good trade-off.
Yeah, it's worth it.
Yes.
Or at least I think so.
All right. Well, I have one more. Why is there an ARB suffix in the OpenGL enum buffer target ARB?
So the strong type, the strongly typed enums in the OpenGL bindings, they don't.
Right.
So obviously in C, you don't have the strongly typed enum, or at least you didn't in the version of C that that OpenGL is targeting. It has all of its enums defined as preprocessor constants. So
Right.
they're not like grouped by an enum or anything. That was something that was sort of tacked on a best effort basis. But luckily they included a lot of metadata in the XML version of the specification that actually said what the group names are, and we essentially just take those completely as is and put them into our bindings as best as possible. So the reason why it has an ARB suffix is because the OpenGL specification, the XML specification, tells us that we need to have an ARB suffix, and we just didn't add any modifications to that.
Okay, well that makes sense.
Yeah.
That that makes sense, I guess. Yeah, it's I suppose it is weird then if what Boy Baker is saying, if it's all core enums, it's weird that ARB is.
I agree.
There, but well.
It's it's something that you need to take up with Kronos. I can bring up the XML specification on my screen share real quick, as that's something we haven't explored and is probably worth exploring. Again, we sort of go over this in the Jetbrains webinar, but just to sort of show it here. Just going to wait a second just in case there are audio issues.
No, I can still hear you.
Yeah, sorry.
Yes? Okay.
Sorry, when I screen share, my computer does this thing where it disconnects every single device I have. So it's not very helpful.
Okay, yeah, that's weird.
So yeah, but it's probably a driver issue. So if I go to buffer target ARB, it is declared like that in the OpenGL specification. XML specification declares all of the enums and puts it in these groups like pixel format. So that is just carried down to our bindings because our generator parses this big XML file and creates all the functions, all the enums for it. For example, it has, if we go down to the actual function section, it has all the commands ever made for OpenGL. So it has the legacy stuff and it has the new stuff all in there. And our bindings just parse this. And if you're ever wondering why a function, why a parameter isn't using an enum and it's just an integer, or it just has a GL enum overload, is because they haven't added this group attribute to the XML.
I did actually wonder that before.
Yes, yeah. So a lot of the reasons behind why the OpenGL bindings are designed the way they are is because this is sort of the way that Kronos has told us that this is OpenGL. So we can try to follow that.
Some of them even are like double. Let's think of an example. Some of them are defined in GL enum and also in like a specialized enum class.
Yes, exactly. So GL enum is essentially meant to be every single enum in OpenGL. Whereas the other specialized ones are based on the groups, because we know that not everything has a group, but we did want one enum that can be used as a fallback to mark that, hey, this is an enum and it's not just some random integer. So the GL enum type is meant to be a all-encompassing fallback for when we don't know the more specialized type.
That makes sense. that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, but I think that's about it. Or you have anything else you want to add?
So yeah, obviously, if you're curious about Silk.net development, pop by the Silk.net Discord server and say hi. Likewise, you can always follow the .NET Foundation YouTube channel, where we regularly stream. Well, not regularly, but every now and then we do a stream discussing Silk.net development, and we also do our API Silk.net API reviews on there, as well as the .NET team also do their API reviews on that channel as well. So if you're ever sort of curious how .NET itself is made, it's worth tuning into those streams as well.
Yeah, it certainly will be. I'll be linking all of these websites and YouTube channels, everything down in the description. So if you're watching this on YouTube, please go down there, click on one of those things, subscribe.
Yes, yeah, I'll send a bunch of links after this.
Yes, subscribe to the .NET Foundation channel, subscribe to... there was also the Jetbrains channel that you mentioned.
Yeah, so we did a video with Jetbrains on their YouTube channel that I'd imagine would also be linked.
Yes, so of course subscribe to my channel as well for more content like this. And yeah, Perksey, I want to thank you a lot for your time, for this very interesting hour that we've had.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. I sort of love being able to talk about Silk.net in this sort of level of detail, so thank you very much.
Yes, it's been very interesting. I think everyone has been able to learn something from this, so we're all happy. And I'm sure we'll speak again sometime.
So cool, thank you very much. Thank you everyone for watching.
And so everyone, that was it. So if you enjoyed, be sure to leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Also, check out the Twitch channel, maybe for more interviews like this, twitch.tv/NoNumberMan. And be sure to join our Discord server, of course, link in the description. Alright, have a good one everyone. Bye bye.